All right, thanks for sticking around for the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Rich Walsh in for Bob Pompiani tonight, but it's going to be another great show with another great panel of guests, and we have a lot to talk about. Jeff Hathhorn from The Fan is going to join me, along with two PG guys, Ray Fittipaldo and Brian Batko. And we're going to start with the Pirates, Jared Jones, Paul Skenes news, and get into Aaron Rodgers in a few minutes. But, Jeff, I'm going to talk about Jared Jones. Something just broke here recently. Potentially Tommy John surgery. If that's the case, he's out for the rest of this year and next year. And wouldn't you think that, I mean, he had to be shut down. So you would think that maybe they should have addressed this earlier this year so he wouldn't have to miss all of next year.
Well, we would get occasional updates that he was long tossing or that, you know, and what they don't want to do is have surgery. I get it. You never want, surgery is the last option. But it seemed like the whispers you were hearing is it's going to be Tommy John, it's going to be Tommy John. And they tried all these other things, and he's going to have him officially on Tuesday. But, yeah, everything that we're hearing is that it points to Tommy John, and that would mean not only this year but next, gone.
I mean, is this a failure on the Pirates organization as a whole?
Well, I think firstly, you know, this is the problem when you build your team around power pitchers. You're going to have guys who have to get Tommy John surgery. So we could argue whether he should have gotten it earlier or not. Listen, the way the surgery is now, you can come back, you could be even better than you were. So maybe there's the incentive to get it done earlier, and maybe they did err there. But you have Paul Skenes, you hate to speculate, but at some point his elbow is going to go. So it's like use him up and spit him out. It's unfortunate the way it is.
It's certainly not a death knell for Jared Jones's career by any stretch, like you said, Ray. But to me, Rich, this is just yet another log on the fire of what has been an absolute train wreck of a season for the Pirates. Really a cursed era for the Pirates post those, early to mid 2000s playoff years. I mean, even today, a microcosm of what's going on. Paul Skenes pitches as well as he has all season, and yet they get shut out for the 8th time. The 4 runs or fewer streak hits 23. That one's a couple years old enough now to drink. And now your other pitcher that you had such high hopes for, uniting those two guys, he could potentially be out for a long time. Other than that, things are going pretty well for the Buccos.
Hey, Jeff, I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened with Jameson Town. They shut him down like this, then they decided he needed surgery. Do you think other teams would approach this a different way? I mean, because there's obviously been a lot of issues with the Pirates, and we can question a lot of things, and that's why I'm asking that question right now.
I mean, I don't know what Jared's thoughts are. I mean, he may have said, listen, I want to try everything. And it is his arm. It is his career. And if that's what they were doing is honoring that, I don't want to destroy the Pirates because he should have a say in this. Yeah. And you don't want to have that. But to Ray's point, I mean, I hate to say it like a blanket statement, but everybody comes back from Tommy John. Yeah. Some people come back better. The shame of it is the timing of it, because now, like Oviedo, you're losing 2 years basically instead of 1 because of when it is.
In a way, though, it's kind of good timing, Jeff, because where's this team going anytime soon? You know, if you're
but
Jared
you would
Jones,
want them for the beginning of next year,
yeah,
right?
If you're Jared Jones and you're the Pirates, though, I guess it is kind of like, hey, take your good old time because we are a rudderless ship at the moment, other than the Paul Skenes clock that just gets more depressing by the game.
The shame of it is we're in such a velocity era now that these guys are throwing harder at younger ages. It's all about velo. And this guy didn't even get paid yet. I mean, he hasn't even seen that first big contract. So I'm sure if he did wait, I'm sure he wanted to wait because he wanted to prolong that as long as he could.
Ray, you talked about velo a little bit. I mean, do you think it's because he's a smaller guy? I mean, Paul Skenes obviously is a much bigger guy throwing 100 miles an hour. Yeah. Bubba Chandler, another smaller, not as big as Paul Skenes. I mean, when you got a smaller guy throwing 100, I mean, that's going to cause problems.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got Stroman from the Yankees who's 5'8". I mean, you do have smaller guys who can bring it, but it is more wear and tear on your arm, I think, when you are a smaller guy. And I think, I don't know if there's research on this, but I would tend to think smaller guys probably do get arm trouble earlier than bigger guys.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I want to get into Paul Skenes. I mean, you brought his name up a couple times, Brian. Bad luck. What do you think's happening? I mean, he's getting no run support the last 3 games. Today, 1-0 complete game. It's unreal that the Pirates can't get him more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the big question looming over him, this team, this organization right now is how high are the frustration levels going right now for a guy like Skenes, who clearly he's got that competitor switch that is different than 99% of athletes out there. And beyond just the payday and, the idea of going to one of the larger markets and playing for a storied franchise, this guy would probably just like to win some games every now and again. So I do wonder what's going through his head when he has a day like today. He's saying all the right things after the game, that he's controlling what he can control, and that's all anybody in that clubhouse can do. But guys, at this point, you have to wonder, is the Paul Skenes era in Pittsburgh even going to last long enough for those people to get their bobblehead vouchers redeemed?
It has to last long enough. I mean, the guy's going to be around for the next 3 or 4 years, right?
Listen, I think this was Skenes. He looked today more like 24 Paul Skenes. And he kind of hemmed and hawed around it, but he did admit to partially that he just went after guys more. Like, instead of, okay, we need to get you into the 7th and 8th inning, pitch to contact, he just went out and just blew by a really good lineup. And the run he gave up was very fluky. I mean, it was a couple of infield hits and a near double play that would have ended the inning. That's the only thing they were able to get off him. But he looked like the guy that we saw back then, and maybe that's the mentality he's going to take going forward. And I think this with Skenes, when it comes to his arm, he uses his legs so well, and he's such a bigger dude.
Yeah.
I mean, knock on wood, he seems like he's in better shape to be able to throw that hard.
Yeah, listen, it's so demoralizing for this fan base to watch this Pirates offense. How do you think the pitching staff feels, and how much pressure do you think Paul Skenes and all those guys, all of them feel that you have to go out and put up zeros on most nights to be even in the ballgame?
And we already knew, Ray, that they didn't do enough to help this offense this offseason, but I don't think anybody could have guessed that they didn't do enough to even win the games where Paul Skenes goes 8 deep and gives up a run. And you'd think you'd at least be getting those wins every 5 nights out. So the way that they're playing offensively right now just makes what you have right now in Skenes feel, I don't know, even more hollow, if that's the right word.
I mean, I like what Don Kelly has done is like, hey, we got to play small ball. It's not a popular thing. Most times you sit there and try to hit a home run. But Adam Frazier, man, get the bunt down. I mean, you've been in the league, what, a decade?
If you're not circling back to Pittsburgh to do those little things, then, yeah, what's really...
I mean, that was as horrible a play as we saw all weekend. He couldn't get a bunt down to the third base line.
We've all been in all these locker rooms. We've all heard athletes say the right things. They can't be feeling that. We all know that they can't be feeling that. When Paul Skenes takes the mound and he's only getting 3 hits behind him or 6 hits and no runs, how do you think he feels?
I mean, listen, that streak that Brian referenced, the 4 runs or fewer, they're averaging 3 runs per game. I mean, right now they are on pace or close to the pace where they could lose as many games as they did back in 2010. So this is an historically bad start for them, and really it's not due to the pitching. It's due to the hitting and all their weaknesses there.
And I think that's why the disappointment, because they have the pitching.
Yeah.
And it came for a lot of us coming into the season. You saw, like, they didn't do enough to help their hitting. No. And you could see this coming, not to this extent, but you could see this coming because they just didn't strengthen them.
3-13 in the month of May, one of the worst teams in the majors. Coming up next, we're going to continue the Bucko talk. And what's Ben Cherington doing right now? All that and more. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Rich Walsh in for Bob Pompiani tonight. We're going to continue the Bucko talk right now with Ben Cherington and what's going on with him right now. Should he still be here? Same with Travis Williams. I'll open it up to both of those guys. Should you just have cleaned house? They're 15 and 33. The 3rd worst team in the majors, 2nd worst team in the National League, trending in the absolute wrong direction. And if we go back 5 years, this was supposed to be the year, Jeff.
It's the easy thing to say, just fire them all. But the reality is you do have a draft to prepare for. You've got your entire scouting department. If you don't have the GM, who's going to take that over? And you could look at a couple of your scouts and say, I don't know if I want these guys picking without Ben, because they've done a bad job before Ben got there. So that's the practical reason.
But devil's advocate, who's he drafted outside of Paul Skenes? And Paul Skenes fell into his lap. I think you could go out there and pick the guys.
No, I'd be bad at it. But it happened before, and economics has played into it to an extent. The other thing is, you could say, okay, we're going to fire Cherington, our president will take over. Well, Travis Williams is not a baseball guy, and he's had his issues this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see that by the end of the year, but I think that's why you didn't see that at that time.
So if you keep him on through the draft, you're probably going to keep him on through the trade deadline as well. And at that point, he's probably going to be here for the rest of the season. Then you got to talk about, does Bob Nutting have the connections in baseball? Does he know the right people on the next manager he's going to hire, if it's not Don Kelly? The next personnel guy, who is that going to be? Because this Charrington hire, 5 years past when it happened, isn't looking very good.
Yeah, and Travis is not a guy that's got a ton of baseball connections. It's not where he came from. He came from the Penguins.
Well, it's not like the trade deadline is going to be very busy for the Pirates. Who would want anybody on this team? I don't think there's going to be a flurry of moves from their end. Not a lot of assets to be acquired by other teams. I mean, I will say when we were kind of going back and forth constantly on the Shelton, Charrington, who should be fired, one, both, neither, a few weeks ago, I was all for remove Shelton from the equation, see if Donnie Kelly gives them that new manager bump. They got it, once or twice, maybe 3 times.
He's 3-6.
Since that's happened. So, and that second game was rousing for everybody. Now I think you do have another variable at play here with Charrington. I mean, not to run interference for the guy, but he did take Skenes. I know you said he fell into his lap, Rich, but there were some other prospects who were being bandied about at that time, and I do give him credit for making that pick. And how much money does he have to work with and spend? Maybe he can argue that.
You give him credit for Henry Davis?
Other small market teams that get it done.
I think the shame of it is that, he didn't hire who he was supposed to hire. He didn't go out and do what he was supposed to do. And here we are sitting in the situation now where, you just have to play it out through the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw the news this week that Ben Charrington's house for sale, but they're just saying he's moving closer to the ballpark, right? I mean, these are all signs, aren't they? I mean, what do the Pirates do right now? They're on the verge of their 29th losing season in the last 33 years. Give me another professional sports team that has been that bad over that long period of time.
They need to blow it up, but the person who's most responsible isn't going to fire himself. So we're always going to be back at this square.
The problem with saying blowing it up is that's what he did. And now to the earlier point, this is when you're supposed to be basking in it, when you have that starting pitching, but they didn't go out and spend the money in the offseason to improve this team. And the one trade they made, the one chip they used, they got a guy who has wrist injuries and finally got on the field on Saturday.
And Donnie Kelly could be a good manager in Major League Baseball, but if they have a terrible record, how do you sell it to the fan base to bring him back?
Unlike the Steelers, and you guys obviously, we all know the Steelers, unlike the Steelers, I don't think free agents want to come here. I think you would have to overpay for a free agent, and that's exactly what Bob Nutting is not going to do.
So remember back in 2012, 2013, like what they paid for Liriano was more than anybody else was going to pay for Liriano. But it was a smart move because you brought that veteran pitcher in there. You made the trade for AJ when people were like, I don't know if you want that in the clubhouse. You brought in Russell Martin for a little bit more money than other teams would have paid. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to take it to the next level, you want to win, you may have to spend more in the front end in order to prove that you are that level. But I got to think there will be some guys that say, yeah, I could roll with Skenes. Like, I'm willing to take a chance with Skenes. But they didn't approach guys that are going to make that kind of money just because they won't.
Who was that outfielder a few years ago, Dyson from the Royals, when we got asked about signing here, and he just said, like, oh, there wasn't a lot out there. So, I mean, that guy was
kind of what Pham said, too.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think apathy has set in with the fans? I mean, are they finally realizing?
Let me jump into this just for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
I did the post-game show today after the game. There wasn't a lot of apathy. Anger.
Yeah, that's still good if there's anger.
Right.
But I'm starting to feel, I was just recently on a golf trip. All my friends wanted them to trade Paul Skenes now. You can't just keep kicking the can down the road. And that's what the Pirates have done for the last, 2 decades.
Who's buying tickets to watch this team in August or September?
I was going to say, the people who call into these shows, I mean, they're always going to be the most passionate, hardcore fans that you have. But the average Joe, yeah, it's tough to muster up any enthusiasm for this program.
Yeah, we get it on the nightly sports call every night, too. So, all right, coming up next, we're going to switch gears to the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. When is this guy going to sign? All that and more coming up next. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Rich Walsh in for Bob Pompiani tonight. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit to the Steelers. And I guess, Ray, the biggest question that we've heard for the last few months is, when is Aaron Rodgers going to sign with the Steelers? Do you have any insight right now? I mean, I would imagine it's going to either be before mandatory minicamp or before training camp.
Yeah, listen, there's one more dead week this week, and then OTAs begin the week of Memorial Day. So, I think for the Steelers, ideally he would be in place then. But, minicamp is the only mandatory thing that he has to do if he does sign before training camp starts. So I tend to think, Jeff, that it's probably going to be right before minicamp. If not then probably early July before training camp starts.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know we all get the question like, hey, what are you hearing about Aaron? Like, there are people where I have a feel, or I'm sure all of us have a feel or can project worse. I'm not even going to pretend to know what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. And I think the Steelers have a deal in place. They know what the parameters are. I think they know the situation. They're just waiting for him to sign it. And when that is, I don't know. You would like to think he would be in for mandatory minicamp, but if he just doesn't want to do any of this stuff, then he waits. And like Tomlin said, I doubted him, but Tomlin said the drop-dead date was start of training camp, and maybe that's when it will be.
Line of demarcation is how he put it, and he kind of walked that back a couple weeks later, and he was like, well, I was just talking generally about players joining a new team, training camp being kind of the deadline. I think it is obviously different for a quarterback, especially someone who's going to be your number one quarterback. And at 41, guys, I mean, I've said this on this show before, I do question whether he wants to be there for all of the optional stuff and even the mandatory minicamp, which he missed last year with the Jets. That's a little more intensive than OTAs, but I mean, don't get it twisted. It still helps to have your quarterback there at OTAs, getting on the same page as receivers, tight ends, the offensive line. I think he'll mesh with the offensive coaches quickly, but I think it's more about getting to know your fellow player and wanting to avoid those optics of being on a pedestal above the 52 other guys.
Well, the fact he's taking this long, do you question that he even wants to play football? Do you even want a guy that's kind of like making the Steelers just kind of...
Here's what we know. He said on the McAfee show that he would play, he told teams he would play for $10 million.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Steelers, all right, $10 million, not a cent more, okay? If that's, that makes it a little bit more palatable because he would clearly be the best quarterback value in the league other than a rookie on that contract. But it's not a far cry from Russ's vet minimum deal last year. You still kind of get what you pay for. And with Rodgers, I mean, we're all wondering how much he still has left in the tank. And, you know, at this point, if he is at all on the fence, I think that does make you question a little bit of the confidence that you would have in his conviction to keep playing.
I don't think Rodgers wants to end his career with a bad taste in his mouth from the Jets experience.
He wants a nice 9-8 or 10-7 to go out on, and this is just the place to do it.
2 bad seasons, one he was injured, and they flew him in there and told him, we don't want you back. So I think there's something to prove there, and I do think he wants to play. He's just got these personal issues he has to deal with.
Yeah, I don't sense either that he's trying to look for another team or trying to play teams against the Steelers. I just think, I think he feels like at this point of his career, he doesn't have to do that voluntary stuff. He feels like he keeps himself in shape and that he can show up when it's time to show up and that he is entitled to this long offseason.
I think that's a mindset within the Steelers organization, too. So before we go to break here, give me a percentage on if Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback come that first game against the Jets. Are you 40? In the 90s?
I should go higher than that, 60.
60%.
I'll say...
That's not a slam dunk.
No. And again, to try to get into Aaron Rodgers' head, I'd say 60.
65 or 70.
I'm going to go higher than these guys. I'll say 80, Rich.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian.
Show.
I think
it's something
like,
here.
Like, I don't know. We're going to find out in September.
Can you not go over? I mean, how does this?
I'm with you on 80%. Oh, 80%. There's an 80% chance we'll be back in a couple of minutes after this break. All right, welcome back to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. The NFL schedule was released this week, and it looks like the Steelers have a better chance of winning games early in the season, Jeff, than at the end. That's a really tough finish.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to find out the Steelers going to Ireland. We kind of found that out for the first time, but that early bye is a killer. They got to go October, November, December straight through, and they only have one home game in December. That's rough.
Yeah, and that finishing stretch where you have Buffalo at home, at Detroit, and 2 games against the Ravens, 4 of the best teams in the NFL, you can make the argument that's as challenging or more challenging as what they faced last year.
Yeah, they never get to play the Ravens early in the season anymore, and unfortunately when the Ravens have a much better team than you, that's more tilted toward their side. So we're always sitting here in Pittsburgh talking about how difficult that portion of the schedule is, whereas in Baltimore, maybe that's not the worst thing for them.
I know the bye week is really early, and obviously the Steelers don't like that, but that's an NFL thing, right? I mean, they set the schedule and said the bye.
Yeah, you can request things all you want, but it's up to the NFL when to do it. There's so many schedules they go through with the computer, and they just came up with giving it after the
Yeah, there's so many international games too that not every team can get a bye after it if they want, but the Steelers happen to get it, and yeah, I don't think that's the best thing for them competitively.
But it also seems like there's I was looking at the schedule, and I'm debating if they're going to win or lose games. There's not any slam dunks. It's a lot of coin flip kind of games.
The Browns at home better be a slam dunk coming off the bye.
But early in the season, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Just when car buyers could really use a lucky break, along comes employee pricing at #1 Cochran Ford. That's right. You get the same extraordinary discounts as if you worked in a Ford factory. And remember, these savings are on top of #1 Cochran's already reduced clear-cut pricing. Plus, you can choose from more than 700 new vehicles across their 5 Ford stores. Get your employee pricing at #1 Cochran Ford and Cochran.com. All right, a year ago, Scotty Scheffler was in jail at the PGA Championship. Today, he won it, and that's my pick for the U.S. Open. I think he's unbeatable at Oakmont this year. Who do you guys think is going to win?
I'm going to go off the board. I'm going to say Corey Connors.
That
He's
is
played well. He hits it straight.
I'm going to say Scotty Scheffler, too. And what a story for what happened to him in Louisville last year to come back and win the PGA this year. That's a great story.
Just to be different from you guys, I'll say Rory gets back on top. I know he didn't play well this weekend. He's feeling the heat. He's under the microscope. He's not talking to the media. What are you doing, Rory? It's always us media's fault.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. That's it for us. Thanks to Jeff, Ray, and Brian. I'm Rich Walsh. We'll see you next week.